We interrupt your regularly scheduled movie review for a paid infomercial.
Hey friends, it's your old pal, Master Bogo, here to tell you about Master Bogo's Discount Jedi Academy. How you doing, kids? It's your old friend, Jedi Master Bogo. I know what you're thinking. How can I be a great Jedi Knight like Master Bogo, like Luke Skywalker, like all the other great Jedi before, like the little baby Yoda thing? I don't know what his name is. It's a cute, he's got the little thing, he makes the big ears, it's great. But how do I get there? What do I gotta do? I tell you what you do. You call me up. You ain't gotta find no mystical planets that's hidden away in the far corner of the galaxy. You come to my place, 3 easy payments, $39, $95, $95. I'll teach you to be a Jedi. So let's hear from some of the people who have been through my program. They can tell you what it's all about. Let's throw it over to, what was her name? Gwen Stefani?
Kayani, sir.
Kayani, that's her, yeah. You tell her, Kayani.
Master Bogo has really taught me a lot. I mean, when I first started out, oh man, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was so nervous and so much fear was inside me, but when I saw Bogo, I knew exactly what I was getting into. He is one of those masters that you will truly remember for years to come. I'm so proud that he was able to take me under his wing and teach me his ways. The way he taught me how to use the Force was just something I will never forget. I mean, who would have known that I could throw an apple so far with the Force? I mean, that was amazing. I mean, of course, when he threw it at me the first time, it hit me in the face, but you know, you just gotta learn how to deal with that. Using the lightsaber, it was difficult at first because I almost did cut my arm off twice, but he kept me going. He kept encouraging me, and that was really nice of him to do that, because I was about ready to give up. So yeah, Bogo, he is truly amazing. One of the masters that is just, will always be there, and I'm so proud to call him my master.
She was good, you know, she was good. She had the thing with the lip and the split, and it was great. Loved her, she was great. She get all lessons, she learned how to use one of these. You know what I'm saying? Yes, that's what you can do. You come see Master Bogo, you learn how to make one of these. Hiya, hiya, hiya. That's what you want to do when you get to be a Jedi. You get one of these, you go around, you tell people, this ain't the droids you're looking for, people. That's what you do.
Hey, sir, we have her follow-up video, too. It's been 6 months. You want to check on her?
Yeah, let's see what,
Kayani.
yeah, her. Let's see what she's doing.
I hate him. Everything he ever taught me was a lie. He didn't even really teach me anything. He's a cheat and a liar. If I ever see him, he never returned my calls either. No, he just left me. If I ever see him again, oh yeah, I'm gonna put this to good use.
Why'd you play that? I'm trying to get people, we don't want people going to the dark side, you know what I'm saying? Just cut that part out. Okay, so forget about Layla got me on my knees, Layla. No, don't forget about it. She went to the dark side, you know, it happened. What are you gonna do? Let's talk to another one of my friends, Tarana. She went through the program as well. Let's talk to her.
I love Master Bogo. He's the greatest master to ever exist. Before I met Master Bogo, I was a lonely water farmer, and that was no fun. And so Master Bogo took me under his wing, and I became a Padawan, a soon-to-be Master Jedi, and I am super excited about it. I even got to make my very own lightsaber. It's great, 10 out of 10. See, this is the beauty. You could turn it on somewhere. I'm sure. Oh, there it goes. I'm still learning. Don't worry, it's fine. I built this with my own bare hands. Look at it. It's marvelous. You're never going to see anything like this again. I promise you. How do I turn this off? All in all, Master Bogo has taught me so much, and I couldn't be happier to be his apprentice. He is the greatest master to have ever walked this land.
We got more on her too? All right, roll the thing with her for the next.
Master Bogo, that loser! He didn't refund my money! I was paying for lessons and he was supposed to give me the money! I'm gonna shove this down his throat. I'm gonna make him pay for not giving me back that money. He's gonna get it! I'm gonna kill him. I hate everything! I hate the trees! I hate the water!
Jeez, see, here's what you did. You got a name like Tirana, sounds like Tyrannus, that's a dark side person. I should have known better. That was on me. That one's on me. I shouldn't have trained her. I shouldn't have, but hey, what are you gonna do? We'll move on. We'll move on. We got another one to talk to. Let's talk to my friend. He was a pilot. He got a great beard. Don't hold that against him. We'll talk to him. I don't even remember his name.
So Bogo shows up one day, waving his hands, saying, you want to be something special in life. Do you feel the force within you? And then he says, how would you like to have one of these and be something really important? And I said, well, yeah, of course. I mean, all I'm doing now is flying around space, shooting things down. X-Wing fighters crashing, computer crashes. They come in, hey, can you come fix my computer? Sure. Well, okay. So yeah, Bogo, yeah, he was the man. He took me under his wing, showed me how to play around with neat little toys, waving my hands around in people's faces. Who wouldn't want to be a Jedi? Psh, nowadays, it's much better than having a blast shield in front of me all day long. Come on now. Let's be real.
And now let's see what he's doing 4 months after receiving the exquisite training from Master Bogo's Discount Jedi Academy.
So, have you ever wondered what happens when Bogo shows up drunk to your first practice? You're looking at him. You go from being good to bad. That's right, y'all. I am now part of the First Order. And I am awesome. I get to play with fun toys now. Some little lightsaber. Is that tickle your fancy? I got some for you, Bogo. Some's gonna tickle your fancy. Uh-huh.
Sir, I don't know what he did on his little computer there, but we seem to have incoming. Shouldn't we get out of here?
No problem.
Sponsored by Local Touch Online, a free online magazine that has an exclusive article by Pop Culture Geekery every month. This episode is sponsored by Hill Country Comic-Con. Hill Country Comic-Con is here to promote fun, art, literacy, and imagination through pop culture and comics. It will be held April 4th and 5th at the New Braunfels Convention Center. Go to hillcountrycomiccon.com to get your tickets today. Hello and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Geekery. I'm Joe Solis, and I have Master Bogo with me. Noah Westerfield with me.
Hey, how's it going? How you doing?
So hopefully you guys got to check out that. Actually, it wasn't really just a skit. It was more like a little mini movie is what it ended up coming out. But, since it's, the last movie in the Skywalker Saga, we always try to do a skit before our reviews, and this one just felt like it needed to be more special. So, thank you for helping with that. And, of course, to, my other friends who helped as well. So, anyway, we literally just got out of watching The Rise of Skywalker, so we're still decompressing. I know you are, right?
I am physically tired from the emotional wrenching that I have gone through over the last 2.5 hours. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm gonna have to say I'm tired for a different reason.
You've got the allergy thing going. You've been
Yes.
up all day. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you see me take a swig of water, forgive me, because I don't know how much editing I'm going to do on this to make sure we get it out as soon as possible. But anyway, so this is the Rise of Skywalker, so it's episode 9 in what's become now the Skywalker Saga. Mm-hmm. As you well know, we got director J.J. Abrams back for this one. Of course, he did The Force Awakens, and I don't know where to begin with this one because
it's hard to. Okay, first of all, spoiler warning.
No, let's do no spoilers.
No spoilers. Yeah. We're not going to talk about spoilers yet. First off, it's good. It's so good. That was my overall impression from start to finish. I was hooked. I was wrapped with attention. I experienced just about every emotion I can imagine. Joy, despair, laughter. I brought 2 handkerchiefs with me because I knew I'd have to use one to wipe away tears, and I had to blow my nose, and I didn't want to use the same handkerchief for both.
Unfortunately, this is where we're going to have to disagree, because which might actually make this more interesting. But I really did try to give this movie a chance. I didn't read any reviews, didn't listen to anything. I think the most I saw was little blurb. I mean, I did see the critic reviews, but I don't put too much stock in those, just because I don't really know where they're coming from. I don't know if they're true fans, because I consider myself a true Star Wars fan. I mean, I grew up with it. I mean, I don't go as far as like the novels and stuff like that, but that's just, he does, but that's just because I'm not a big reader. But if it's a movie or if it's animated, with the exception of still catching up on the Clone Wars and Rebels, I've seen it or I have it. So like you just said, you go beyond, you actually do the novels and all that.
I've read the novels that are now considered legends. I'm trying to catch up on the ones that are now quote unquote canon. Mm-hmm. It's, I don't have as much time to read as I did when I was 15, but I'm trying to keep up. I've seen all the animated things that Joe hasn't. I'm up to date on The Mandalorian. Star Wars is one of the pillars that I hang my hat on, and I am pretty much in it all the way. So, yeah.
Yeah, but like he said, there's going to be no spoilers at first, but we will clearly stop, and declare when there all be spoilers. Yeah. So
we won't do that.
I know one of the things that the critics brought up, which unfortunately I kind of had to agree with, was he was going at a breakneck speed in this one versus The Force Awakens, where I feel he took more time. Talking about J.J. Abrams, the director. And I think that was one of the things at the beginning, like, okay, so I'm just going to stick with stuff we saw in the main trailers. I'm not going to get into all the TV spots, because I feel like there was at least one spoiler in the TV spots.
I didn't watch those. I did avoid, like, I saw the first trailer, the main trailers, but I avoided like all the spots after that, and any sort of teasers or theories or things like that. No, I just let me see the movie and I'll make that's what I did.
So I would say when from the trailers, when you see that scene where Rey jumps over Kylo's ship, I feel like that's where the movie finally finds its footing. Because before that, I just felt like it was a bunch of, we got to find this, we got to find that, we got to go, like a bunch of, that's not red herrings. Red herrings is when it's something that it
Red herrings when they're chasing something that isn't real.
Okay. No, these were real things. So I guess I'm equally. There you go. Like we said, I'm equally as tired. So can't think of my proper vocabulary for storytelling right now. But yeah, it just felt like, another thing that I saw. Again, I'm just using the critics as a basis because they're the ones that kind of set the stage this week for that, unfortunately. But they're the same ones who set the stage for Last Jedi and who praised it as this amazing masterpiece. So it's kind of hard, to follow that. But I was finding myself agreeing with a lot of what they were saying. I'll go ahead and let you.
I've been a film critic.
Yeah.
Some of you may remember that I used to write for the NB Citizen and did film review. And I often find that the things that I look for in a movie, there's a difference between an entertaining movie and great cinema. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times film critics are looking for great cinema and fail to see an entertaining movie when it's right there in front of them. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, if I didn't see I don't know what the critics have said, but if the critics are giving this movie a negative review, I think that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, for me, I always go about how does the movie make me feel, because I feel like I've seen enough movies just in general, not just the Star Wars movies or the universe in general, to know like how the story is making me feel as it's coming together, And so I was trying to think of a good example. I know there's been other movies, and I guess it depends on the director too. It just felt very odd that JJ did that, unless he felt like he had to just stuff so much in here. Because I didn't feel like The Force Awakens was like that. Like I felt like The Force Awakens, we had some nice time, especially with Rey, being the new character at the time that was the central focus. And here, there was some dialogue there when they all kind of come together. Do you remember right after they land the Falcon? And they're just kind of snapping back at each other dialogue. Mm-hmm. That's when I was just like, slow down. Like, that's when I felt it.
So, pacing-wise, yes, it is a fast-paced movie. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason for that. Think about how many loose ends had to be tied up. Mm-hmm. Think about how long you can make an audience sit in a theater. This is already, 2.5 hours? Mm-hmm. This is 2.5 hours is a long movie. That's a long time to go. You've been drinking your Big Gulp without having to go to the bathroom and miss something. Mm-hmm. And if you do, you're going to miss something. This is a fast-paced movie. If you leave for 5 minutes, you're going to have to figure out what you have missed. Mm-hmm. So the pacing didn't bother me because there was a lot to get through. I mean, you start ticking off the things in your head that have to be resolved, all the different storylines, all the different characters, all the different resolutions that have to happen. Everybody needs to have their little moments in the sun. And if you don't move fast, you're either going to have to leave some on the cutting room floor, which is not perhaps the best idea, or you're going to have a 3.5 hour movie. So the pace did not bother me.
Yeah, because I guess for me, like that's why I kind of, when I was watching the movie, I made that scene in the desert my mental bookmark, because I was like, at this point, if we were to just kind of get rid of all that previous stuff, I would have been more okay, because I felt like we could have stretched a lot more. Like you were talking about all the loose ends and stuff. Yeah, there was a lot to tie up. But then on top of that, they introduced new characters, which I did like. Like we get Zori Bliss, which is played by Kerry Russell, who gets to be in all of J.J. Abrams' cool stuff.
J.J. has his favorites.
Yeah. And then we had Naomi Watts. Is that her? Or no, I think Acker. Naomi Acker. She played... See, I can't even remember her name, but that's okay. I've only seen the movie once. But she didn't come into almost the third act, I
mean, you say they introduced new characters. There are some new characters, but it's not like new major characters. Yeah. We have some new minor characters that have specific roles to play, and they come in and play them. Mm-hmm. yeah, we don't get a lot of time with them, but there's a lot to do in this movie. This movie had a lot to do.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I almost kind of wish they hadn't, because I did like, out of those two, I liked Zori. Like, I was like, her and Poe had some interesting interactions, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Then boom, we took off, and I'm like, wait, I wanted to see more of that, and that's not the way I felt with everything, but there was a lot that was just like, we got to move forward, and I don't know, like there's ways to do it. Like if you want to stick within the Star Wars universe, one of the things that I know a lot of people love and that I love, like about The Empire Strikes Back, I consider that a running movie. Like they're on the run pretty much the entire movie, but it doesn't feel like the way this one did, to where they're in a hurry. It's like, yeah, they're being chased, but there's moments for them to rest, like them being in the asteroid, things like that. That's what I didn't feel. We got too much time to rest and just take a breather on and kind of reflect on what happened. I mean, something major happens in the desert, to one of the characters, and it's like, okay, we're just moving on,
So yes, but that also is part of. So it's a stylistic decision to decide to go at that kind of a breakneck pace, where, I mean, there are no slow beats in this movie. It is fast paced from one to the next. If you don't give your audience a chance to breathe, that adds to the tension. Like I said, I am physically exhausted from watching this movie because I was because I didn't have a chance to relax for 2.5 hours. Now that might not be for you. That might be too much, but for me, it was like when the final credits rolled and I was able to finally sit back, just tears started streaming out of my face, and I was so happy and content and at peace with how the story went, the way that it was wrapped up, all the different loose ends that got, and the final ending scene is magnificent. It felt like the way that the saga should. It is a choice, and it is a choice that some people will disagree with. I get that. I happen to be on the side that says that it was hard. It was not an easy thing to sit through because of that, but it was certainly engaging.
Yeah, because let's take Kylo's arc, for example. To me, that was the most engaging arc in the whole thing. Like, for me personally, I loved it the way that it, and I felt like it was earned for him. I think that was another thing too, especially even, and that's the thing again about the trailers. You saw, I think you just about see the entire movie in the trailers. I mean, he said in an interview that you didn't get to see everything, which, yeah, that's true, but it's mostly like cameos and little Easter eggs and things like that. But I felt like in the trailers, when I really thought back to it, I was like, we pretty much saw everything, with the exception of some of the character resolutions, which of course I'm not going to spoil in the trailer. But like, I just wanted to address, in that trailer, you saw all the ships gather and you saw all the Star Destroyers gather.
You hear the laugh of Palpatine.
Yeah. All I will say is, like, we didn't get an Avengers portal scene. Is what I was expecting, kind of. Like, we kind of did, but not. See, but we shouldn't have to say kinda, is what I'm saying.
No, but we did. I'm not going to say kinda. We got that scene.
But it was just over too quick. It's kind of like, and that's again my thing about the breakneck pace, is that we imagine in Avengers Endgame, if you got the portal scene and then we go almost directly to, the defeat of Thanos. It's like, how would you feel if you didn't get to see all the characters interact? I mean, you got to see, like, okay, in that scene, Finn and Alana, is that her name? I'm gonna look it up. I'm sorry. They had probably one of the more major roles in that scene. Which of course in every Star Wars battle there's a objective. There's an objective to reach. So, but go for it.
So with the portal scene in Endgame, So Star Wars is 9 movies, and really they're broken up into 3s. And so in this movie, you only really have 3 movies, kind of 4, 5, maybe we'll go 6 max that we're having to get through. In Endgame, 20 movies that we have to bring. So, I mean, it has to take more time because there's more people. Everybody, you have to get the Black Panther shot. You have to get the Ant-Man and the Wasp shot. There's 20 of those. Whereas with Star Wars, you've got not as many. And we knew, and from the trailer, we knew one of them. You get to see Lando come back in all of his glory. So that, you're waiting for that moment, and it doesn't disappoint.
Yeah, speaking of Lando, I really liked the way the little bits he got to be in. He looked really good. Like I don't know what they did to him because I've seen him in interviews. He looks different in real life, so I feel like they touched him up a lot or something.
It's amazing what a professional makeup studio can do. I mean, you should see me after they get done with me after a professional makeup studio. But yeah.
Yeah, and you did if you watched the skit we did. But I don't know. I'm just, the thing about, like you said, I think you just said it a while ago, Star Wars, yeah, they're claiming it's 9, but it's kind of after the fact. It's so weird with Star Wars. Everything seems to be after the fact. It's like George Lucas did the first one, and it's like, oh, wait, this is actually episode 4. And so I'm going to do 5 and 6. Okay. And then it's like, okay, well, eventually I'll do 1, 2, and 3. And he made us wait so long for that. And then, and then we had that, and of course everybody knows, the thing with that.
There are deficiencies in 1, 2, and 3. I can admit that. Episode 2 is my least favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah, but we went back and rewatched them all in anticipation of this. And it's one of those that I don't know if I've just become more forgiving with those, which maybe will happen with Rise of Skywalker over time. I don't know. I'm just saying, because I know in the moment, again, that's what I try to go with movies, because I know that if I go back and watch some of my favorite movies, I'm going to find all kinds of mistakes and things and reasons to not like them, but at some point, if I started out with not enjoying it as much, because even with the prequels, I enjoyed them. At the time, I remember leaving the theater and being, happy and satisfied. Maybe I was blissfully ignorant in my early 20s. I don't know.
This is where we differ. I left the theater after the prequels going, huh.
See, that's kind of the way I left the theater after Last Jedi, because I didn't hate on it the way most people did, but I was trying to just watched and trying to figure out what that director was doing, so there's that.
And yeah, the Last Jedi did leave that sense of there was that. I had that same sort of question, but it was a different, like in episode 1, I went in thinking, oh, this is going to be great. How can this not be great? George is back. Darth Maul. We've seen previews about Darth Maul. That guy looks like he's going to kick all kinds of butt. And then after I got out of the theater, I was like, I think I liked that. Did I like that? Did I like that? I liked parts of that. The pod racing scene was fun. The lightsaber part was good, but did I like that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I liked that.
Yeah.
But after The Last Jedi, I was like, I liked that, but I'm not sure where I go from here. There was that questioning, but it was on the opposite end of, do I like it versus do I not like it?
Yeah. And another thing that the critics brought up too, they felt like there was a lot of a Last Jedi in this one. Yes, I caught some of it, but I didn't feel like there was anything major. I don't know. I guess he did, but it felt more like he was just trying to catch us up that he would have addressed had he done Last Jedi.
Once we get into the spoiler-filled section, there's 2 parts I'll talk about that were specifically what I think are apologies for the previous 2 films. But aside from those 2 moments, I don't. It didn't feel like they were just like, hey, let's sweep all this under the rug.
Yeah.
We won't talk about midichlorians. And they didn't.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, it. I can see why it's going to be a different kind of divisive than the way the Last Jedi was. I mean, I think for me with Star Wars, it's like always looking for the underlying theme. Like, what are they trying to teach us in these movies? You know, with the prequels, it was, George said it's, what happens when a good person turns bad. Okay, so it took us a while to get there, but we finally saw it. And then all the lessons, of course, in the original trilogy about the Force itself, about fear. There's so many deep lessons in those. And then so it was like, okay, going into these new ones, what are they trying to teach? And for me, for the Last Jedi, the lesson was failure, like Yoda says. How do you deal with failure? And it ends up becoming the greatest teacher sometimes. So that's what I look for, and that's what I was trying to find in this one. Like, what's the ultimate lesson in all of this? And I couldn't really settle on one.
I'm about to talk about the lesson, but I don't know if I can without delving into spoiler territory.
We can go ahead and wrap up the non-spoiler section. I'll just say, if enjoyed Force Awakens and Last Jedi, I mean, it's gonna be one way or the other with this one, like, because depending on how you felt about those two movies, I think that's really gonna dictate how you feel about this one. Because if you were in J.J. Abrams' corner going into The Last Jedi and thinking that was horrible, then you might love this because it's J.J. Abrams again. Or if you were like, well, I don't like what J.J. did, but I like what Rian Johnson did, then you may not like this because it's not what Rian Johnson did, So I can see it's going to be very divisive again, but for different reasons. You're a Star Wars fan, you definitely got to check it out. You got to see how it all ends, and I think it's so funny. It's like, why is it with these, with each other, it's like any other movie. You're just supposed to discuss it. If you liked it, fine. If you didn't like it, I've just always found it interesting that with Star Wars, there's that quote that floats around out there that says, nobody hates Star Wars as much as Star Wars fans, and that shouldn't even exist, So we'll go ahead and wrap up. If you remember with our rating system, it's 1 to 10. 5 is an average movie. And basically, I watched it, I'm done. Don't really need to ever see it again. So that's the scale we normally use here. So you want to go first, or you want me to go?
You can go I need a moment to think.
Okay. Well, I try to just judge it on how it made me feel, which, if you remember, a lot of people agree with the way that I saw Endgame. Me, it's great at the end, but then we have to get to a lot. And that's, I was really hoping that it was going to be like Endgame for me, that, okay, I slogged through these, the and the time heist, and then, okay, we got to that last battle and it was awesome, And so I was, like, okay, breakneck speed. Okay, we're getting some revelations. Let's get to that last battle. And I just didn't feel it, So I'm just going to have to settle on a 6 out of 10.
I am always loath to give out 10 out of 10. Mm-hmm. And after just one viewing, I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But I am going to go for the solid 9 because if I weren't so tired right now, I'd be going back to the theater to watch the 1040 showing or whatever they have. If there's any showing left, I'd be going back to see it again. Mm-hmm. I have plans to see it again this weekend, but this is a movie I'm going to be thinking about until then. Watching it the second time, it's going to be like I'm going to be looking for certain things, background. The second viewing is where I feel like I can really cement my feeling about a movie. But right now, I'm still very excited about seeing the movie again. I can't wait. So yeah, solid 9.
All right, guys. So go ahead.
With the possibility of it getting to a 10. It could be a 10.
Well, just to let you know, I mean, the movies that are 10 for me are not perfect movies, but they are up there in, usually, they start off with how they make me feel, but then it evolves into what they mean to me. So that's usually how I determine a 10.
And I'll tell you now, some 10 movies for me are, the only 10 movie in the Star Wars franchise at the moment is Empire. Other 10s for me are Princess Bride and the movie Clue. If you haven't seen
nice.
Clue, please do yourselves a favor.
So anyway, thanks to those of you who have subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, because we've been so close to 200. Yeah.
So you get the notifications.
Yes, I always forget to promote the bell because YouTube is changing. So definitely, if you haven't hit that, because YouTube is changing in 2020. It's going to be more for creators if you support us that way. So
Master Bogo says subscribe. Subscribe.
And we all know how successful Master Bogo.
Hey.
All right. So anyway, for those of you who have seen the movie, stick around for spoilers coming up next. All right, so we are back for the spoiler section. So for those of y'all who have hung around, so that means you've seen the movie. And so, yeah, where was the earliest spoiler in this movie? Because I know a lot of them obviously came towards the end. Was it okay? So you want to just do the major one with Rey first?
Sure, let's go.
Because I feel like that was the earliest one. But so basically they dropped a bomb on us that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. So, see, you had that reaction. I did not. I was more like, huh?
So, that's one of the things I've been thinking about ever since the Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. There are only, if you think about Force wielding families and how the ability to use the Force tends to follow in bloodlines, we only know about so many in the Star Wars universe, 4, 5, 6, and on. So you've got the Skywalkers, but then you also have Palpatine. And ever since that first movie, I thought that she very well could be a Palpatine. So that did not come as a huge surprise to me. That was something that I had thought about. So when they did, I was like, that's the way they went with it.
See, for me, like after that happened, I was trying to think. I was like, okay, let me think. What did JJ that even remotely takes us in that direction? And the answer was nothing. The ship flying away. That was literally all he gave us. And that's the thing about this new trilogy, which at first I defended, which was fine as far as we have 30 years missing, and they're filling in with comic books and novels and video games. They're filling in the gaps. So originally with Force Awakens, and I try to separate from the story world as far as decisions, right? So the Force Awakens, got all this flack for being a safe movie. It's like, let's make it the most Star Warsy movie we can, even though, in my opinion, Rogue One was a more Star Warsy movie. But it's like, okay, but there's a lot of stuff missing. There's the whole conflict with Luke and Kylo and what happened at the temple. There's just allusions to what happened, recently answered in a comic. So I give them that, right? Do this, and then for them to show race. It's funny. There was an interview with JJ where they asked him, did Last Jedi derail what you wanted to do? And his answer was, it didn't really derail what I wanted to do, was his answer, which means that yes, it did derail. So he basically took the idea of Rey's buddies and just said, okay, I'll go with that. But the guy, right, is the son of Palpatine, according to what he said, right? Mm-hmm. So
yes, so the whole your parents are nobody, Rey. They sold you for booze money. Okay. The what that goes on to is like, I didn't lie to you. They were nobody, but they chose to be nobody. Mm-hmm. They chose to be nobody because they were trying to hide you from your grandpa because he's Grandpa Sith. Yeah. And nobody don't want to go with Grandpa Sith.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is that at least with the other stuff, that was missing for that 30 years worth of storytelling, there was stuff set up against that showed the results of that. The reason that Luke left, the destroyed Jedi Temple. I mean, there was a lineage there, and then with this, it was like, well, shouldn't he have been introduced, the son of Palpatine, or at least the idea, or something like, just something. Throw me a bone here,
But the whole thing for Rey is that she is on this quest. She is trying to find out where she comes from. Mm-hmm. And if you give that away too soon, or even because in this day and age, if you drop little hints, people like me can pick them apart and dissect it. And if there was little hints that Sheev Palpatine's kid was running around and had a daughter, there would be the cat would have been out of the bag. So I think in order to preserve, like I said, I had already thought about the fact that she could be a Palpatine. It wasn't high on my list of possibilities. It still came as a bit of a surprise, but it was not. It was something that was earned. If she didn't have to go through the whole process of trying to find that, it takes away from her quest. It takes away from her struggle. She's wanting to go back to Jakku because she thinks her parents are coming back for her, and that's her struggle. And it would kind of take away from her as a character if easy answers were given. That's the way I felt about it.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm not saying I wanted them to tell me, that Palpatine's son was her father in Force Awakens. Just something like again, trying to separate the real world from the story world. It's like, it feels like a lot of these decisions were made later, just because this trilogy, and it's funny again because that's what George Lucas did. He did make some decisions later. Almost feels like, I don't know if they were going for the whole, because obviously with Vader being Luke's father, that was decided after the fact. So there was nothing in A New Hope that even alluded to that. He even had to, retroactively change what Obi-Wan said, because that was the original idea, that Anakin was a different
point of view.
Yeah. But that one little line fixed the idea that Anakin and Darth Vader used to be two different characters. I actually was just reading up on that again today. So the same thing here. It's like, okay, fine, that's what you wanted to do. I don't know. I just still felt like there was something missing,
And you also have to remember that there was another big monkey wrench thrown into making this movie, and that was the death of Carrie Fisher. Mm-hmm. So, originally the whole idea was, Force Awakens, that's the Han movie send-off. Last Jedi, that's the Luke send-off. And, it was kind of always going to be Leia is going to be centered and featured more in the third movie of the in the Rise of Skywalker. But when Carrie passed away, they had to do a lot of shuffling. They had to shuffle around things for The Last Jedi. They had to take some things that they had shot for The Last Jedi and put it on the shelf and save it. So I think that probably was more of the monkey wrench in the plans than Rey's parents or some of the other directing decisions that Rian Johnson made.
Well, I know that I saw that Rian Johnson talked about that, because obviously, she passed away while he still had the ability to change her role in the movie. But I know he said he definitely didn't want to lose the last time that him and Carrie Fisher, that Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher are on screen together. And I think that was his big motivator to not take it out, because a lot of people were like, well, when she went out into space, instead of flying back, she could have just floated away, and died. But he didn't want to do that to her, even knowing that whoever takes up after this, they're going to have to figure it out, And I did good with Leia with knowing the backstory. I think they did good with her. It was interesting because it was just kind of like, she didn't have much to say, but it's because, obviously she was limited in what lines they could find. And then, the way they tied her into Kylo, obviously if she was still alive, that's one of the most unfortunate things, is that I felt like we never really got that interaction between her and Kylo. And so, her death, unfortunately made that to where they just kind of had to gloss over it in this one, which again, you didn't really have a choice on that.
And that's kind of where the fast-paced helps out. You're not lingering over the fact that, this is not as good as it could have been. If only Carrie were still around, If you have long enough to sit and watch, you start thinking about, that's the back of someone else's head, I guess, or this is something else that they just kind of cut in. But with the movie going as fast as it was, you didn't have. I mean, there were certainly moments where I was feeling sad. Every time I saw Carrie up on the screen, I was starting to cry. But you don't have enough time to linger on those things and really pick it apart too much in the moment, because we're on to the next thing. Something dire is about to happen, and if we don't get it soon, we're all going to die.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Kylo, because like I mentioned in the non-spoilers, his arc was my favorite in this movie. But I do want to say real quick about Rey, because we've also heard all the arguments about her. She's a Mary Sue, and why she's so powerful. I will say making her line is the only explanation that makes sense, that doesn't, like you say, include a Skywalker or something like that. So what did you feel like that kind of fixed her character?
I think that I was never on board with the whole Rey is a Mary Sue argument. I think that more and more, a lot of times people try and shove female heroes into the Mary Sue corner where they don't deserve to be, because it's a cop-out. It's an easy way to, if you've got 300 words that you have to fill into an article, you can write about that for 250 of them, and then you don't have to worry so much about what you're doing with the other 50 words. So I never bought into that personally. I always thought she was an intriguing character. I thought she was multifaceted. I thought you had I thought that Daisy Ridley does an excellent job in her portrayal. And I think that particularly Rey and Kylo Ren, their duality in this movie, which was a big part of their kind of explanation on how they're able to do things the way they are, I thought that worked really well. It seems, how in the Harry Potter movies, they always introduce a new bit of magic that's going to come in really critically at the end of the movie. For a while, it seemed like we were getting new force powers. Like in Return of the Jedi, we'd never seen force lightning before. All of a sudden, Sheev's throwing lightning out of his fingertips. Yes, his name is Sheev. I don't like it either. But in this one, we got some new force powers. Technically, one was spoiled in The Mandalorian this week before the movie came out, because we had actually never seen force healing before. But we saw it in The Mandalorian Episode 7, and now we've seen it in Rise of Skywalker. And this whole idea of this duality, it doesn't, I mean, like a lot of force powers, they don't give it a lot of explanation. It's just like, you're a duality in the force. This hasn't been seen in generations. That explains it all. Sure, we can go with that. And that's the thing, with it's the force, what are you gonna do with it, huh? Shuka, shuka, shuka. But that's one of the things that I really thought was, it was one of those loose ends that needed to be tied up, and that was, I thought, a satisfactory way to do it.
Yeah, and it's not that I believed that she was a Mary Sue character, because I did see evidence that they're doing this on purpose, because like when she fought Kylo Ren the first time, how did she know how to use a lightsaber so well? How did she overpower him? He's actually had training and things like that. Even in the second movie, you start seeing more, but of course she did get some training from Luke. So it's just one of those, it's like, okay, so if you look back at Luke Skywalker, there's just from the little training Obi-Wan Kenobi gave him in the Falcon, he would have died against Vader, but in Empire, some training from Yoda. I mean, he goes and he holds his own against Vader a long time, but he still gets beat in the end.
Yeah, because Yoda's not teaching him lightsaber combat.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like with Rey, she's surviving things a lot longer that she shouldn't really when you think about it. But if you add in the Palpatine angle, then that's the only way that I'm like, okay, you know.
Well, in The Force Awakens, they do establish that she is a scrapper. She will fight you. She is not afraid to get in there, and she uses a melee weapon. I think that just establishing that early on in Jakku, that was their way of saying, listen, this is a character that has the ability to fight. She may not have been trained from birth in how to wield a lightsaber, but if you know how to use a staff, you can use a sword. You may not be the most proficient with it, but you know, you have some innate ability, you have talent, you know how to swing something and not hit yourself in the head. So
So let's go to Kylo. So, you know, the only time, it was funny because I felt like he was getting time. The only time it felt rushed was at the very beginning, because it's like he literally meets the Emperor within the first, 10 minutes? So, yeah.
2 minutes. Yeah. That's like the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So that's where I was like, oh, but that's when I was like, here we go. Like, it's because it's just like, oh, he's meeting the Emperor. He gets, you know, told everything. And then when he starts his quest, it's like everybody else is rushing around him, and he's just so
Taking his time.
yeah, he is taking it, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's all I wanted, for everybody else to be like Kylo.
Okay, I can see that, but at the same time, I had to pee, and I stayed through all the credits because I stay for all the credits, not just because that's what Marvel taught me to do, but just because I couldn't make my legs work. I was exhausted after this movie. I almost peed in my seat, but I didn't, and that's the important part. But, you know, at least with one character, they were able to give you that methodical kind of plodding pace. Because, I mean, he's kind of channeling Vader. I don't know if you remember, it was a video game that was released like on the Wii, but the tutorial level, you play as Vader. And no matter how much you push the joystick, he walks. He does not run. He does not, I think he might not even jump, but he walks. And it's like, because Vader just walks. You don't see Vader run.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, I think that's why I liked Kylo's much better in this one. And it makes sense with everything, even in Last Jedi. Like, you know, he rose to power in Last Jedi, and then the Emperor just dropped this bomb on him, and it, like, all of a sudden that didn't matter, you know? So, yeah, his was definitely my favorite arc. Do we want to just, how do we want to get to the end? Because they're just like, obviously there's a focus with Rey and Kylo and the Emperor there at the end.
Right.
But is there anything else we want to go over before we get into the end?
So there was the 2 bits of fan service I mentioned earlier, talking, you know, kind of going back to the sins of the past. So at one point, Rey chucks Luke's lightsaber towards a flaming hulk of a ship, and Luke's Force ghost catches and is like, this is no way to treat a Jedi weapon. You can just see Mark Hamill winking at the camera saying, I know you all hated it when I flicked. No. Okay, we get it. You hated that. Treat it with respect. We got you. And so that was one bit of kind of, you know, okay, we heard you about that. And the second one I thought was Chewie's reaction to hearing that Leia died. You got a good moment of Chewie flipping the F out because he was so sad that Leia had passed. I mean, you got a brief second of it in The Force Awakens when Han dies, and then he's into shooty mode. Yeah. But in this time, you got the full mournful Wookiee roar, and, you know, a little bit of that you kind of feel was for Peter Mayhew too, because he died before this movie. So
yeah,
I'm getting a little verklempt talking about it.
I will jump ahead just real quick to the end because I don't want to forget about this, because it's actually the only part that I laughed out loud at. But for those of you advocates for Chewie getting the medal, he finally gets Han's, right?
Yes, that was great. That was another good bit of quote unquote fan service.
Yeah.
But I was just like, it was hard to me. It felt so like touching. She wanted you to have this. It hit me straight in the feels.
Yeah, so that was good. And that's another thing a lot of critics were talking about, is the fan service. I guess I'd have to think about like anything that I thought was like blatant, because okay, so the surprise to me was Harrison Ford came back in another Star Wars movie.
I think that was another one of those, like, if Carrie were still around, that would have been Carrie's part, because that's a very emotional, touching, like, that's what brings Ben back from the dark side. And that would have been Carrie if she were there to film it.
Well, and I love the juxtaposition of the same camera shots and angles as them on the bridge.
Same line.
Yeah,
they use the same some of the same lines. It is very much a callback, and there are so many moments that just hit me straight in the heart, and that was another big one of them. Watching Harrison, Han Solo stroke his son's face, just that forgiveness, and that kind of brings me in, we'll go to the end, and we were talking about the lesson. What are we supposed to learn from this movie? And to me, I think it comes down to the fact that inside each and every one of us is both good and evil. And what determines the kind of person we are is how we choose to use those things. And so while Rey is the granddaughter of the most notorious and evil Sith Lord ever, and has the ability to summon lightning, she has the Force lightning, notorious dark side power, and she accidentally uses it to kill Chewie. If you don't think that was the longest 2.5 minutes of my life, you're wrong. Oh, man. But that's what I think the message was, is that there is that duality. There is both inside of all of us. We are none of us 100% light or 100% dark. We are both those shades of gray that we have to choose where we fall. And it is in the choices that we make that determine who we are.
Yeah, and like for Kylo, I mean, it's funny because I've seen so many reactions to the trailer where people like are cussing at him and things because they're like, "You killed Han Solo," and it's just like this actual hate. And it's funny because they themselves are giving it the dark side by doing that. But here in the end, even doing what he did, he still gets redeemed, which is funny because it's the same lesson as Vader. Because I remember after the prequels came out, my friend was like, the infamous scene of him killing the younglings. My friend was like, man, if the only thing that happened to him in Return of the Jedi is, he got his hand chopped off and he got, beat down by Luke, he's like, he got off easy, But see, that's the mentality, is like, okay, so then you start measuring what's the punishment fits the crime type of thing, So I can see that with Kylo in this one too. Like, it's funny because since he was kind of doing his own thing, there was nobody really around to judge one way or the other which way he went. It was just kind of a personal journey between him and Rey, because I don't think any of the characters really saw that he changed other than Palpatine.
None that lived. Yeah. I mean, Snoke saw it. Well, at the kind of, I don't know. When you're bisected, how much do you see after that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do answer who Snoke is. So he was basically... He wasn't a clone of the Emperor, but he was being cloned or something. They just really quick, literally at the beginning, just passed by it.
Yeah, Snoke was some sort of clone. Snoke was a Palpatine creation. Yeah. And, as you think of Palpatine as the puppet master, it's just another in the long line of puppets.
Yeah. But let's see, what else before we get to that last battle? Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying with the last battle, I mean, I was just another 20 minutes of that battle or something. That's all I really wanted, because we had so much. You had the Star Destroyers, which had the Death Star cannons on them. You had the Sith troopers, who it just over too quick. Like, I wanted to see more.
I will agree with you on that. I could have used another 10 minutes of that final battle, and specifically, I could have used a lot more of Wedge Antilles. Yeah. He gets this much. Yay, Dennis Lawson came back. We're really happy to have him. Blink and you miss it. Yeah. But he's there. Mm-hmm. But he's not in an X-Wing. Mm-hmm. That's what I would have loved it if... So in my head, you go back to Endgame, you have the whole on your left. If crackling over the radio, Poe hears, "This is Rogue Leader standing by."
Yeah.
That would have been the big moment for me. It wasn't there. I wish it was. Maybe that's what keeps it from getting to a 10. But I'm glad he was there. I would have loved to see a little more.
Oh, in the opening crawl of the Star Wars, the funniest opening line, the dead, what is it? The dead talk.
speak.
Or yeah, the dead exclamation.
The crawl has gotten ridiculous. Can we just say the crawl has pretty much just gotten ridiculous?
Yeah, because, the whole thing is, and again, stuff that happens off screen. It would have been great to have people, across the galaxy all of a sudden.
20 minutes of
Yeah, just, Palpatine's voice comes over and everybody's like, what is this? But it's in the opening crawl. So, anyway, so Palpatine basically, he wants Rey to kill him so his spirit can go into her, which this part I kind of thought about as soon as I saw Palpatine was coming back, because the whole, obviously spirits are a thing in the Star Wars universe. So that was interesting. And I actually kept expecting Rey to sacrifice herself earlier. I mean, she kind of does in the end. Well, she does, but, it's quickly undone by Kylo. So, but then
you cannot sacrifice yourself. I sacrifice myself to unsacrifice you. Ha ha!
Yeah, I know, it's the whole Finn and Rose thing again. It's like, I'm not going to let you kill yourself. Oh, but you're dead now. So, and she didn't get to him in time before he disappeared. Sure that he disappeared before she could lay hands on him to try to heal him.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
So yes, I mean, the obvious things happen. They defeat Palpatine. Rey dies first, but then Kylo brings her back, and then he dies, and
He becomes one.
he becomes one with the Force. Yes,
Subtle,
and then so does Leia. I know Qui-Gon never did, but he's in the round table of voices that she hears.
Qui-Gon died before they figured out how to do that.
Yeah.
It was I know you haven't seen all of the Clone Wars yet, but that's one of the things they get to in the later seasons. Is Yoda is the first to kind of figure out that there's a connection, a doorway kind of path between the physical and spirit realms, and he imparts some of that to Obi-Wan, but Qui-Gon never got that.
Yeah. So again, like I said, my main thing was it was too fast. Like there was, I feel like you could have just gone back and edited out a lot of stuff, especially at the beginning. I feel like the beginning was where you could have lost a lot of stuff and stretched a lot of those things towards the end, and it would have been fine. Like that, I think that's the only thing that would have made it better for me.
Next time you watch the movie, write down the list of scenes you think could be removed, because I will be interested to see what you think can be taken out and still leave the structure as a whole. That's a tricky Jenga tower to start pulling bricks out of, my friend.
Yeah, so this towards the beginning, that's the only thing not the Kylo stuff, but I think all in all, it's like, again, back to, it's just funny with Star Wars. It's like, why people dislike it, they really hate. It's almost the manifestation of the lessons of giving into hate and things like that, because that's at the core what it's supposed to be. But Star Wars itself exists in 3 different trilogies. I'm of the, if you only like the original trilogy, then go for it. You get a story from 4 to 6.
Middle, and end.
Yeah. Same thing with the, you just tack them on. I mean, if you got to the prequels by that point, tack them on to 4, 5, and 6. So therefore, you have the original saga. And then if you like these characters, you can tack them on again. And then now you have the 9, saga. So it's just one of those things, like, like any other thing. You're gonna like it or you don't. But since it's a franchise, I think that's why people, and of course it's from a lot of our childhood, they take it more personally. And for me, it's just like, well, I didn't like Rise of Skywalker as much as I would have liked, but thankfully with shows like The Mandalorian, it shows that there is a future for Star Wars, and it it probably just involved laying the Skywalker family to rest, literally. So
And so you gave it a 6, so it's like you don't love it, you don't hate it, you're kind of in the middle on it. That's a rare place to be for a Star Wars fan, so it's an interesting spot you're in.
yeah, oh no, because there's never been that I was like, oh my god, I hate this so much. It's like, the originals. Nothing beats the originals for me. Even going back and rewatching them, just because nostalgia's involved and things like that. But little, almost like a separate.
I hate episode 2.
See, I can't say that. I just recently rewatched it too, and I'm like,
sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, the more things that exist in a franchise, heck, the Terminator franchise for me still stops at part 2. I've tried. Every time, the only one I didn't do was Genesis, but I have tried each time, and I'm just like, but I don't get all bent out of shape out. I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm going back to 2. It's like, it's like, why did I leave my wife? Part 2 was my wife. Why did I leave her? So, anyway, anything else you want to throw on here before we end this?
Leave your comments down below. Tell us what you thought. Did we get it right? Did you have something else you wanted to add? What was your favorite There was a lot of fun cameos in this one, too. You got to see John Williams have his little cameo.
Oh, where?
He was a bartender very early on. Yeah.
Oh, that was him?
That was him.
I should have known they were focusing on that bartender too long. Yeah, you get to see Wicket. You get to see... see, that was it. Other than Han, what other ones did we get?
You got to see Carrie's daughter again. There's not a lot. Like, I didn't see Ahmed Best anywhere.
No, you know what? I just figured out why this movie's so divisive. They killed Snap Wexley, and Snap Wexley, he is the good luck charm.
Movies, yeah.
So see, they did it to themselves. If they had just not killed him, this movie would have been fine.
He could be okay. People survive fireballs all the time.
I honestly was waiting for Phasma.
There was no, I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, Phasma did not come back.
Especially because all the critics are like, oh, there's all these cameos and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, JJ's going to bring back Phasma because he felt she was wasted. And nope.
She died in that fire.
Oh, and the Holdo maneuver is a 1 in a million shot now, by the way.
Fan service. Hey, we hear ya. You didn't like that.
So anyway, guys, yeah, thanks for following us. I think this video's gone pretty long, but I knew it because I knew it was going to be a lot to yeah, like Noah said, definitely comment below. Let us know what you like, didn't like. You optimistic about Star Wars thanks to stuff like The Mandalorian. But Noah's getting undressed for you now. But anyway, all right. Well, thanks again, guys, and we will see you next time.
May the Force be with you. Always.